Good morning, Wham! All right, Connor, how's it going?
Okay.
Today we're going to read about the other Harriet, not Harriet Tubman, who was a great hero of mine, but this is a great author, Harriet Beecher Stowe. And this is Harriet and Uncle Tom. And she wrote a book that was very powerful and kind of caused everybody to hate slavery. So, with even more passion, and she really helped end slavery by writing a book. All right, let's hear about it. Harriet Beecher grew up in Connecticut in a house of children, 7 boys and 4 girls. Her father, Lyman Beecher, was a congregational minister known throughout New England for his fine sermons. The Congregationalists were descendants of the Puritans, serious and moral in their religion. All Lyman Beecher's boys became ministers. One of them, Henry Ward Beecher, was said to be the greatest preacher of his day. Thousands of people packed his church when he spoke. Another son, Edward, was a college president. Catherine and Isabella, 2 Beecher daughters, were pioneers in the fight for women's rights. Harriet was the smallest of Lyman and Roxana Beecher's children. She never grew to be more than 5 feet tall, but size has nothing to do with ability. She was the sister everyone depended upon. She had a way of getting things done. She became the most famous Beecher of all. In fact, Harriet Beecher, who married Calvin Stowe and then was Harriet Beecher Stowe, was the most famous American woman of her day. And all because of a book she wrote. A book that changed history. You can see that the Beecher family wasn't ordinary. The Reverend Lyman Beecher played the violin, sang hymns, and was known to dance around the house in his stocking feet. He was very religious. He also had a good sense of humor. He liked to ask his children questions and make them think. If a child couldn't beat him in an argument, Lyman would give out clues to help sharpen the debate. Finding ideas was easy for Lyman Beecher. It was his watch he could never find. He was always losing things. One day it was his sermon. The next day his hat. When he didn't lose things, he gave them away, like his new coat, which he gave to a poor man who didn't have one. Once, on a Sunday, the Reverend Beecher exchanged churches with another minister. It was just for one day and seemed a good idea. But while the other minister was preaching, the Beecher dog entered the church. Now, the dog often did that. But this time he saw a strange man on the pulpit. So he walked right up there and started barking. That was bad enough. But then one of the Beecher children began singing, and then another one, so the whole family was shaking with laughter. Finally, they all had to march out of church, children, dog, and mother too. When Harriet was 13, her sister Catherine, who was 24, opened a school for girls. Harriet went as a student, but then she began teaching as well. She discovered what every teacher knows. Teaching is a good way to learn. Harriet was also beginning to write and to care about words. The Lyman Beecher moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, where he became the head of a college to train ministers. He wanted his family with him, so Catherine and Harriet became Midwesterners. In New England, slavery had seemed far away. Now it was close by. Ohio was a free state. There was no slavery there. But Kentucky, just across the Ohio River, was a slave state. Harriet stood up on the banks of the river and watched boats filled with slaves in chains who were being shipped south to be sold at slave markets. One day, she saw a baby pulled from its chained mother's arms. She saw a look of anguish on the mother's face. She never forgot that look. Once, Harriet was invited to Kentucky to visit a friend who lived on a plantation and owned slaves. The friend and her family were kind people, and she saw slavery at its best. But when Harriet and her friend rode horses to a neighboring plantation, they saw a cruel overseer abusing blacks. Harry remembered the kindness and the cruelty, for she was becoming a writer, and so she observed and remembered. She wrote stories and essays and poems. Then when she married Calvin Stowe and had babies, there never seemed to be enough money. Calvin was a teacher in her father's college and not paid a high salary. So Harriet wrote stories to earn money. Calvin got a job teaching at Bowdoin College in Maine. By this time, Harriet had learned a lot about slavery, and it made her very angry. Her brother Edward's wife said to her, "If I could write as you do, I would write something to make this whole nation feel what an accursed thing slavery is." And that was just what Harriet Beecher Stowe did. She wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was the most important book ever written in the 19th century. Maybe the most influential book ever written in America. Its chapters were first printed in a newspaper. Within a week of its publication as a book in 1852, 10,000 copies had been sold. And Uncle Tom's Cabin was just getting started. Before the Civil War even began, 2 million copies were bought in the U.S., and it was translated into many languages and sold around the world. Historian James McPherson says it was the bestseller of all time in portion to population. In England, Lord Palmerston read it 3 times. A decade later, he was Britain's Prime Minister and had to decide whether to get involved in America's Civil War or remain neutral. It's a very exciting book. Some critics say it is not great literature, but you can judge that for yourself. Uncle Tom's Cabin is good reading and not difficult, except that it is full of dialect, the everyday talk of blacks in the Old South. If you can handle the dialect, you will like the book a lot. Anyone who reads Uncle Tom's Cabin and doesn't cry at the end has a hard heart. It was the first American novel to make real people of blacks. It made people care. Harriet Beecher Stowe tried to be fair when she wrote the book. She made the horrible overseer Simon Legree a northerner. Legree is the villain in the story. Uncle Tom, a saintly black man, is strong and heroic, the finest person in the book. 2 black men who beat him are evil. Some white plantation owners are good people. Harriet was trying to show that color has nothing to do with whether a person is good or bad. What she showed very well was that the system of slavery was evil. That even good people did evil things when they were a part of that system. Uncle Tom's Cabin changed people's ideas about slavery. It made people in the North angry. It made them willing to fight a war to end slavery. Much of the South was against the law to buy or sell the book. When President Abraham Lincoln met Harriet Beecher Stowe during the Civil War, he said to her, "So, this is the little lady who wrote the book that made this great war." So it is amazing the power of words in literature. Some of you are great writers. Maybe you'll write a great book, like Harriet Beecher Stowe. All right?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe you, Connor. Who knows? All right. Bye.
Bye.